So here's where things are going to get a little messy. I've got a cutoff wheel jacked up in this tool here. That's what we're going to do to make this job easier, is we're going to cut our pitman arm off. In order to do that, we're going to relieve the stress or the strain that this thing has, the grip that it has on that shaft right there, by giving it a relief cut right in here. Now you can do this with an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel in it. I just happen to have this tool, kind of a glorified Dremel, so to speak. This is a 3-inch blade, metal cutting blade. And you can use a 2-inch, you could use the 4-inch, but the bigger you go with it, the more it's going to contact the steering gearbox before it cuts a large way through the pitman arm. So I decided to go with this 3-inch. I've got a 2-inch over there on the table in case I need it. And of course, as I use it, this 3-inch is going to shrink in size anyway. So let's see how this goes. Not too bad so far. Look at that, pretty decent cut into it. And we're going to go ahead and continue until something happens. The sparks are definitely sharp and hot. So you're going to want to protect yourself. While I'm thinking about that, let me get some more protection. All right, I'm more protected now. I got my sleeves on. So I found these tattoo sleeves. I thought, man, that looks cool. And it protects your arms from flying sparks or even grease and grime. You're reaching your hand up inside of that engine and you come back and you might have gloves on, keep your hands clean, but then your arms are coated with grease and whatever, and you're going to go and take your best girl out for a night out, and you don't want to have grease stains all the way up to your underarms. So get you some of these cool sleeves. Plus, nobody messes with you when you're wearing them. They think you're some kind of bad biker. You know, of course, here I am talking safety. I got my mask on, I got my hearing protection in, I got the gloves, I got the sleeves, and then what? The fool's in flip-flops. I know. What can I do? All right, so let's get to it. Let's get back to it. All right, guys. I'm going to say these angle grinders from Ryobi, and this is the HP. This is the brushless version. Got a good battery, plenty of charge on my battery, and yet it overheats way too quickly and stops. Not the best choice. There it goes again. Just got to unplug the battery, plug it back in, and you're good to go again. Very frustrating though. You know, even with these problems with my battery, this is making really short work of that thing. So it'll cut through there pretty easily if you've got a more reliable tool. Air die grinder or something like that. Okay, so we did a few more cuts here, and hopefully you can see up in there that we've cut pretty much through this pitman arm. So what we're going to do now is we're going to try and, you know, did a little nick on the side of this steering gearbox, but stop before you get to the threads or the splines of the thing. And we're going to try and see if this thing will just fall right off of here if we hit it from above with a hammer, punch, chisel. You could probably even put a chisel in here or some sort of wedge, try to spread that out and then let it fall off. So let's see how this goes. All right, so first thing I want to try is a little wedge here. Got a little wedge chisel. and I'm going to stick that in that gap that I've just carved in there, and I'm going to whack on it with this hammer and see if we can get it to just kind of spread out a little bit. Okay. You know, I think that seems to be working. Now, let me just see if we get lucky and tap this thing. I need to tap it from above, but it's kind of an awkward angle. You can kind of come down through the top with, you know, like a pry bar or something, or a chisel or something like that from above. But while I'm thinking about it, let me put a pry bar between here and that steering gearbox and see if that'll separate the two. We'll come in here and we'll just see what happens if we just give it a little love. A little push down here. Now it's trying to rotate the whole steering gearbox because I don't have it secured very well with that one nut there. I can't really get a good angle of the dangle here, but we'll see what we can do. Goodness gracious. All right, so it's not coming apart as easily as I had hoped quite yet. What I got to do is give it a little love tap or two here. Let's give it a love tap or two here, just kind of like a tie rod end or whatever. We're going to try and shock it a little bit and see if it'll release some of the grip that it's got on it. I'm going to go ahead and back in here with our little chisel again. Okay, so hopefully that's all kind of spread out, and I'm going to leave that in there. Kind of got it wedged in there. We'll go back with our pry bar again, and we're just going to see if we can get. Hey, looky there, guys! Woohoo! Score! There it is. So now we have our pitman arm off. Well, it looks like I went in and scored a little bit of the splines. No big deal. It's not boogered up to the point where won't be able to slide the next one on there. But this saves you so much heartache getting one of these things off of here. Just relieve the stress, because man, you see that wedge shape? That thing is held onto that wedge shape like nobody's business. Now we just got to figure out how to rotate this gearbox so that we can get the pitman arm out of the way. I'll go ahead and get our chisel freed up. Come here. There we go. All right, I went ahead and I loosened up our pivot bolt again, and that just gives me a little bit of wiggle room, a little bit of play in this steering box. And I'm going to try and move that steering box around however I have to in order to get this pitman arm out of here. Oh, almost, there it is. So loosening up that pivot, pushing up on the front, and out she came. There we go. So you can see how I cut right through that booger. But man, I tell you, this will save you a ton of effort and make life a whole lot easier. Whew, man, I tell you, that was some job. But I tell you, with the right tools, a little bit of technique, you can do it and save yourself a ton of headaches. So that worked out. And now we're going to put a new pitman arm in. I want to show you. So I really like Moog as a brand. They make really good products. Here's our old pitman arm. Here's our new one. What is this part number? AXXK440019. All right, whatever. Let's take a look at this piece here. Compare it to our old one. Make sure that we've got the right part. And you know, they look similar. We can screw in our grease zerk there. Let's see how many splines. Does that all look about the right same size? It does. So we're going to see if we can't get this one up in place. We're going to have to monkey with the steering gearbox again in order to slide this up under there, but I think we learned how to do that before. So I'm going to have to push up on this side and kind of come in from the back with the new pitman arm. Just enough to where I can slide the thickness. There it is. All right, there we go. And then you want to line up. There's a fat spline, a fat spline every so often on this thing. You see that one right there is a fat spline just to the right of this cut. And there will be another one over here on this side and another one over on that side. And there's some like that on the inside. Grab that. Some like that, fat ones on the inside of the pitman arm. So those have to line up. So just kind of rotate it around until those line up. And then that's how you'll know that you've got it in the right orientation. Oh, I've got it upside down. Well, let me flip this thing over. That would have been bad. Secure this thing upside down. Okay, come on. Flip it over and back into place. There we go. And I'm going to rotate it around until it, there we go. And you'll feel it. It'll go in there way easier once it's lined up. See that? And now we're ready to go back together with our washer and our nut that came off of here. And then we'll have to tighten it up quite a bit. You can see where the old one was by that witness marking there. All right, let's get our washer up in here on the stud. And then we'll put our nut back into place. And we're going to have to rotate this thing up to give ourselves some room again. Try and do this all with one hand and keep my hands out of your line of sight. It's a little bit tricky, but it's worth it because I want you guys to learn from this the way that I did. And again, I'm trying to keep the joy in wrenching. I want to find the easier ways for everything so that we can do our jobs a little bit more enjoyably and have better attitudes about it. So normally when you drop a bolt or a nut or whatever, you get a bad attitude, but I'm not going to do that right now. Not going to let it steal my joy. All right, let me put this back together. All right, I apologize if my hand gets a little bit in your line of sight here. Well, as I mentioned, I kind of need to have my fingers in this area to tighten this little nut. There we go. Okay. Got it started. And these things, as long as your threads are clean, these things should spin on pretty easily. And you want to make sure that you get your pitman arm lined up the way it was so that when we put our drag link back up there, we'll be able to connect these two back together. So before I go tightening up everything on the pitman arm here, I'm going to go ahead and reconnect the mounting points for the steering gearbox, reconnect our bolts, through bolts that hold it to the frame, and get all of that back together. And that way this will all hold steady while we put some torque on this nut to tighten that thing up. And with most stuff on the suspension and steering, you want to make sure you use some Loctite, just so these really important bolts don't ever work themselves loose. Let's try and line this thing up and get everything started again. Come on, baby. There we go. That one feels like it's gripping. And, you know, leaving that one connected makes this, you know, finding the hole a lot easier. Once you got it started by hand, you can go ahead and use your impact to kind of buzz it down a little bit. This one's kind of tucked up behind that plastic. I'm going to have to use an extension. These are 24 mil. There we go. Tighten all of them. And we're just sucking these things up. We'll torque them by hand. The torque on these is probably 8 million foot-pounds or something like that. If I can find it, I'll post it below. But you can see that that blue Loctite will help these things from not backing out. I'll go ahead and torque these things here, and then we'll move ahead and try and tighten this nut. All right, bear with me while I tighten up this nut that holds the pitman arm on. Again, we got this giant crescent wrench. I don't know what size this nut is. If you guys do, leave a comment down below for the guys. I don't know what torque spec's supposed to be on this thing, but I guarantee it's going to be large in both cases. And as I'm tightening this, it's going to want to rotate. So I may wait and tighten it the rest of the way once I get the other side of this pitman arm reattached to our center drag link here. All right, let's see if we can get lucky and get this thing connected to our drag link again. We'll take off our protective caps here. Comes with a new nut, which is nice. And we'll take this drag link. We're gonna have to rotate the tire or the knuckle a little bit so that we can get it a little bit further towards the passenger side. Let's do that. There we go. Let's see how that looks. So we're going to have to line up this hole with our stud here. There we go. That wasn't too bad. Now we'll go ahead and start the nut on, keep it in place, and then we'll go ahead and tighten that thing up here in a second. Okay, so we've got our idler arm torqued in place back here. Torqued in place. We got our cotter pin keeper there. Now let's go down over here and let's try and secure this nut that tightens up our pitman arm to our center drag link. So let's see what it's going to take to get that. And just in case this whole stud starts to spin, they've given us a chance or a way to hold it in place while we tighten that nut. But we're going to buzz it up there with the impact and see if it'll just at least get tight for us. So let's see what happens. We get you in a good position with the light. There we go. Now it was spinning, but the nut was spinning a little bit faster, and so it did come up. And of course, this is too long. The shaft is too long for my socket. It slipped off of the nut. So I'm going to have to go to my 24-inch wrench to tighten that up. That's a little frustrating, but at least now I know that I need to get another tool, a longer socket. That's how I know when it's time to buy another tool, is when I run into a situation like that where I need something just a little bit longer. There we go. Let's tighten this thing up as much as we can with our ratcheting wrench, and then we'll use the regular type of wrench, because a ratcheting wrench, the little gears inside of here just aren't all that tough. And so if this thing's supposed to have a lot of torque on it, you're definitely not going to want to use a ratcheting wrench for that. I'll get her tightened up. We'll go ahead and tighten up this nut here. And I don't know if I've said this yet. You know, if you're going to be cranking on anything and you got a vehicle, you got a vehicle up in the air, doesn't matter if it's on a lift or on jack stands or whatever, if you're going to be monkeying with something, really cranking on it, trying to, you know, break loose bolts or whatever, please do yourself and everybody a favor and use extra support underneath the vehicle. So, you know, I'm using a lift. It's taken me 50 years to get it. So it's a great thing, let me tell you. But if I was on the ground, I'd have jack stands all over the place. And I'm using them here, you know, supporting this lift front and back, because this is a big, heavy truck. And you go to monkeying on it and you could pull it off of the jack or pull it off of the single stands that you might have. So just be safe, guys, and, you know, go home alive. Get this thing tight. again, this is why I've got all of that support on here. And you can see as we're tightening it up there, we're sucking this thing up to where it's back where it was, or at least where the other one was. All right. At some point here, I'm not going to be able to just use this thing by itself. I'm going to have to start using some persuasion. So if you got yourself an extension of some kind, you know, a big pipe or something you can put on the end of the thing, you can do that. I'm just going to beat on it with a hammer, help it to keep moving. You probably can't over torque something like this. If I can find the torque spec for it, I'll pull it up and post it down below. But you know, I'm sure it's a couple hundred pounds, 175 to 200 something pounds. So again, you're not going to do that. You're not going to have to worry about over torquing it. Woo, we're getting there, guys. So this is tight. We've got our new pitman arm attached, nice and tight. We've got our new idler arm attached, nice and tight. Everything's torqued. And so now we can go ahead and take our sway bar, which we kind of let flop down here out of the way so that we could get to those bolts and everything. We're going to go ahead and reattach the sway bar. Hey guys, thanks for sticking it out with us. I know that was a lot, but if you're going to do part of the steering system on one of these big heavy duty trucks, because one piece is worn out, this thing's got a little over 120,000 miles or something like that. You know, the parts just wear out, you know, and so it's good to go ahead and replace as many of them as you can. And so I wanted to show you how to do all of it. It's a little easier sometimes when you do them all at the same time too, instead of one little piecemeal at a time. And, you know, while something's down, you can fix it and get to other things behind it, as we saw. So today, just as a reminder, we did the outer tie rod ends. We did the sway bar end links. We did our idler. Turn the light on there. Did our idler. We did our pitman arm. And I showed you the easy ways to get to that. Everything's nice and torqued. Everything's got a securing cotter pin or Loctite if necessary. We've got everything greased that has a grease fitting. And the only thing left really is we're going to put these belly pans back up, these skid pans back up to protect everything, and go out there and get it aligned. You know, you do something like this, you know, this much work, any kind of front end type work, you definitely need to get it aligned afterwards. You know, we counted how many rotations we took the tie rod ends off and put them on the exact same spot because they went up and bumped up against those stops, which we left in that place for that reason. But you're still going to need alignment. And so I'm ready to go out there and see if I feel a difference and see if that shimmy that I had at about, you know, highway speed, 55 mile an hour or so, it would kind of shake like this. See if that shimmy goes away now, because I definitely found some worn out parts. There was a lot of play. I've got all these parts left over down here at my feet. A lot of play in the outer tie rod ends, the idler, and the pitman. So this is going to tighten it up a whole lot. If it doesn't fix my shimmy, it sure should fix most of it. And I bet you this is going to be good. So I will get back with you and let you know how it goes. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to put some chapters in here because I know it's long, and that way you can skip to what you want to see, or maybe break it up. I don't know what I'll end up doing, but I thank you guys that stuck through to this end. I hope this helps you a lot. If so, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, and I appreciate y'all's time. God bless.